why don't we double it? What's up, guys? I love Hunter here, and here we are to have a nice little discussion on the length, the girth, the size of Jujutsu Kaisen, and whether or not it would benefit as a whole from being longer, thicker, juicier, more gargantuan. We have a whole chunk to talk about, so let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Jujutsu Kaisen is ending this year. Presumably. Gege also said this last year, and now we are still going. So this may or may not be the case, but it seems Gege is pretty set on ending it this year. And unlike last year, where there were definitely like debates on like how are you gonna do that, especially when Gojo versus Sukuna started like in the back half of the year. I was like, how you really gonna end it in 2023? But now, with us seemingly being in the final arc, we literally have every single one of the heavy hitters doing something. We no longer have any mysteries on where all of them are. A lot of them have been in the battle, and if not been in the battle, some have been halved by the battle, some not have been halved by the battle, some are still fighting the cooks. Like, we've been here for a minute now, and obviously, outside of the merger, we don't really have any more plot points. Kenjaku has been taken care of. The Culling Games is essentially over. Ryumen Sukuna is here now, and won't let any of them escape, and they likely won't let him escape, considering that would reduce them back to like a horrible position. So it seems like we're in the end game. So of course, once you get to the end of things, whether it be the end of life, the end of a piece of life, whether it be the end of a test or anything of the sort, you start to look back, you start to reflect, and you start to think of what you could have done differently. And if there's one thing, even though my name is not Gege Akutami, if there's one thing I think JJK could have done differently, it's pacing. So here's the thing about JJK. As a whole, it is one of the most... I'm not going to... There are some moments that we'll discuss in a little bit. There are some moments, but it is one of the most efficiently written shonen I've seen. There is very little fat you could trim from the series. There are points of fat where you could take the scalpel to and just... Yeah! But they aren't as... Whoa. I got lost in the darkness, okay. But they aren't as common, especially in comparison to other series, but just JJK itself is very concisely written. There's very little downtime. We go from our main cast struggling with, like, well, not struggling, but dealing with grade 3, grade 4 curses, to fighting special grades in a matter of, like, 10 chapters? Maybe 20? And in the time of the anime, like, 4 episodes. Like, we meet Magi so very, very quickly. A special grade curse. And our characters are forced to fight in that level very, very quickly. The whole grade system kind of gets thrown out the window before the first half of the series is over. We literally get to the most pivotal arc in the series before the 100 chapter mark. Without Shibuya, the rest of the story can't happen because JJK is so efficiently and tightly and cleanly written to the point where you kind of don't have downtime. And with that being the case, I think this is a good thing. Notably, a lot of issues that other people have with other pieces of fiction is that it feels like there's filler. It feels like there's too much downtime. It feels like we're wasting time when there's massive need for plot progression, plot moving forward, integration of plot, character developments. All of these things need to happen. And JJK is somewhat refreshing in the fact that it's like, talk. We here for a good time, not a long time, and it books it throughout the entire nature of the plot. And once again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it has its benefits. The fact that JJK has no room for filler has meant that with, once again, like maybe definitively 1, possibly 2 exceptions, there's no point in the series where there's extensive downtime. It also has its problems. The one problem, I'll admit, that JJK had when it seemed to want to go in a slightly different direction than what seemed to be the bang, 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 move, go plot, is the military plotline. That seems like the only part of Jujutsu Kaisen that was kind of thrown in, meant to do something, and then Gege gave up on it immediately and cut it. That's the only point. The military plotline, which is something that's built up to throughout a majority of the Culling Games, introduced as early as the Megami fight, which, if you remember, is the second colony, which is only about, I don't know, 40, 50 chapters. And if you go even before that, when Kenjaku first starts to meet up with the other nations, it seems like it's going to be a much bigger thing. That's the one point that gets dropped. In retrospect, it has no point. I mean, it has point in the sense that it was explained to have a point. Like, all the non-sorcerers being there ended up getting got by curses. That ended up fueling the merger even more. But once again, that's quite nebulous. And it was added in as extra fat. That is, once again, one of the few pieces you can cut. So maybe you're thinking, well, okay, Gege tried to add more, realized that they didn't want to do that, and ultimately gave up on it before it even really began. So why would we want Jujutsu Kaisen to be longer if it's already tried to be longer, only to subvert that because the author realized it didn't work? And you have a wonderful point. A fantastic idea, in fact. So much so that... Y'all remember Kashimo Hajime? Yeah, this guy? This real cool fellow right here? What do you know about Kashimo Hajime? You mind telling me? Don't worry. Don't worry. Not too much. He wanted to fight Sukuna. He had electric powers. And he really liked a good fight and was good at fighting. Real good stuff. Now, let me ask you a secondary question. How'd you feel when he got waffled? How did you feel? Did you feel distraught? Did you feel emotional? Were your heartstrings tugged at when a whole waffle iron was thrown his way? Now, I don't know, but based on the community consensus reaction, most of us laughed. There's a reason why we call him the King of Farmers. From the farmer period of the greatest farmer era in history. There's a reason why we call him Waffle Shima. Peak employee at Waffle House. Because there was nothing behind his execution. There's no weight. Because we barely knew the character. Notably, Kashimo, before the time of his execution, is a character who's not even 100 chapters old. And within that 100 chapter span, before this, he probably has a sum total of 10 chapters in the narrative. If that, considering you do have the entirety of the Ikari and Kashimo fight, plus the Panda and Kashimo fight. But even then, a good chunk of the Panda and Kashimo fight is dedicated to that waste of space, that disgusting creature Panda, and then Hikari versus Kashimo, which is only about 5 chapters. Not too much time is actually spent on Kashimo in the narrative itself. So, of course, we aren't really going to feel anything. And a lot of his claims and titles and boasts and points and all that, it feels like hot air. Because we don't really get to see much of it. Because Kashimo Hajime isn't too much of a character, as he has a plot device used for the development and progression of other characters. Like Sukuna, in further explaining his philosophy as he does in the afterlife. And, of course, there are other characters like this, too. The characters like Higuruma. That's not Higuruma. We'll get to you. That's also not Higuruma. We'll get... Where are you, Higuruma? Come back here. Don't you run from me. Higuruma. Now, I ask you, outside of... Oh no, we lost another potential man. What did you feel when Higuruma fell? Did you feel much of anything? I can tell you I didn't. I mean, like, notably, I went in with the assumption that he wasn't going to do anything, and I ended up being right. And considering how bad I am at being right, it's pretty sad that I ended up being right. Because, once again, Higuruma wasn't necessarily a character that existed to be a character. He was a character meant to push the plot forward, in a very similar vein to Kashimo. Why did Kashimo have 200 points? So the cast and crew could get 200 points without actually having to slaughter 40 people. Why did Higuruma have 100 points? So the cast could get 100 points without having to slaughter 20 people. That's about it. And of course, the character ended up falling for this. Unfortunate. Very, very sad. But, once again, it's sad in the context that we lost Potential Man. Not necessarily because we knew Higuruma that deeply as a character. Even though Higuruma got a whole little section, a whole little chunk of a colony dedicated to him, and a whole backstory chapter, Higuruma is also a character who, before the time of his execution in 248, was barely, if even, 100 chapters old. And within those 100 chapters, he also only exists for about 10 of them. There's no downtime to Higuruma. We don't get to see him have another battle. We don't really get to see many of his character interactions. And what little we do is either right before he gets executed and or afterwards. I'm kidding on the afterwards part. We don't see anything from him after this. But still, unfortunate. Hey, question. How did y'all feel when Ryushi Gori got? Y'all feel anything? I felt things, but that's because I'm a Ryu rider, an Ishigori eater. I glaze him. That's it! In terms of character investment, I don't know Ryu. I didn't spend any time with Ryu. Ryu was introduced in the Clan games only to get got by Sukuna for hype. Unfortunate, but once again he serves his narrative purpose, gassing up Sukuna even more, right? Wow, look at the opponent that Yuta Akotsu, our second strongest warrior, ended up struggling immensely with alongside 2 other special grades. Isn't it crazy that Ryo and Sukuna can low diff him, if not negative diff him? Well, that's fantastic. Y'all remember Yorozu? Yeah, you know this character right here. Oh, not even Yorozu. Sumiki? You know, one of the most important characters for the current state of the narrative. Like, legit, if this character did not exist, Megami would not exist in the way that he does. And he also wouldn't have said no to Yuji in 251. Meaning that certain scenarios just wouldn't happen if this character didn't exist. How much do you know about Sumiki? Don't worry, there's nothing there. Other than the fact that she's a character point for Megami. Why? Because the series is very, very tightly written. And very, very concise. Meaning Sumiki didn't have time to be a character. Heck, Yorozu didn't have time to be a character. She's introduced, gets a chapter break in between or 2, and then immediately gets got not 3 chapters into her own fight by Big Raga, the Obstopera, in order to once again feed the narrative. But once again, I don't know Yorozu nor Sumiki, so this means nothing to me emotionally. Or at all. And I ain't gonna bring it up because it was a little bit rough, and it's gotten on me whenever I try to show their images. But let me ask you a really, really sad question. How did you feel about Nobara? Because I can tell you, I didn't care. I felt bad for Yuji because I knew Yuji, because I got to spend time with Yuji. I barely knew Nobara. Even worse, look at Nanami. Oh no, Nanami got. What a shame. I saw him fight like twice before, and both were for very short instances, and then there was little to anything else with the character. Except for the retroactive work that Gege tried to do, either right after he offed them, in the case of Nobara, or right before, in the case of Nanami. Wonderful work, Gege. I feel nothing. And that lack of deep connection to any character that isn't someone like Gojo Satoru, who we spent a bunch of time working for, a deep connection to characters to someone who isn't Yuji Todori, a bunch of character, yeah, we spent a decent chunk with Yuji, so a character we feel a lot for, but once again, since he's the main character, we know he's not going to get got, and thusly, any repercussions haven't really happened to him, outside of the, the mental and physical ones. Or even a character like Megami Fushiguro. I'll be real. I'll be completely honest and real with y'all. This didn't necessarily hit as like an emotional pain thing for me because I, once again, barely knew Megami. I started to get interested in Megami after his colony fight, only for him to get body jacked. On Fort, I don't really care though. And you can see that this isn't just a me thing. A lot of the community doesn't even really care for Megami, with rare exception. Why? Because there just wasn't enough time spent with these characters. There simply wasn't. And that's unfortunate. So, if you had to ask me, yeah, JJK could definitely benefit from being longer, if solely to make these characters feel more like characters and not tools and plot devices. Because I'll be real, Hirozu and Tsubuki, plot device, not really a character. Once again, plot device, not really a character. But you know my real goat. Plot device, barely a character. Plot device, barely a character. Plot device, barely a character. Plot device, well, to be fair, very much a character. But that's the thing. All of this, every last bit of it, the heft, the girth, the weight that goes behind some of these characters works because characters are being fed into them. Every single time Sukuna gets more glaze, or another character falls to him, or another character is put in dire straits by him, Sukuna gets more and more weight and heft and girth, but ultimately it all feels somewhat hollow for the fact that these characters that are falling, with the exception of one in Satoru Gojo, don't really mean anything because we barely know these characters. Jujutsu Kaisen does have a sort of pacing problem, where due to the stringent nature of the narrative, we don't get much time to feel many things for these characters before the characters end up playing their real purpose, which is trauma bait for Yuji Itadori, which is slop bait, or literal slopping, for Ryomen Sukuna, the perfect being, the perfect man, the perfect sorcerer. If it isn't to sell Sukuna's power, if it isn't to sell Itadori Yuji's suffering, then the character, once again, just doesn't really mean much, because they aren't really given the time to mean much. And I'll admit, all of this can be rectified if you just double JJK's length. Give Kashimo another character. Give him one to feed into the narrative of Ryomen Sukuna. Let us actually see some of the battles that Higuruma undertook in the Culling Games. Let us have more time with the character to actually understand and grow a decent connection to them, and not try to super characterize their guilt right before they get God. Let's actually spend some real time with Kashimo and his struggles and his ideologies and what he feels like, and let's actually get some Kashimo backstory. Let's actually see Ryuichi Gori have more than one battle in the entire series, and, slight hints at a Glaze Fest in the past, by having him fight other people and actually having more interactions with characters. So this means something more than hype beast or hype fest or hype bait. Let Yorozu and Sumuki actually be characters. You can achieve all of this by by doubling the narrative length. It sounds like a lot, and it is. I'm not saying it's easy. You would have to create more characters. You would have to flesh out the narrative even more. You would have to take more and more time to make these characters actually mean something. But I think the trade-off is worth it. I think it would make JJK all the better. Because while I think that JJK does use the loss of life very appropriately and fittingly for the narrative and its structure, I think it would benefit if there was more emphasis put on the lives being lost because of our actual connections to them. But that's what I think. Please what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think that JJK would benefit from more girth behind it, simply for the betterment of its characters and our feelings about the characters, or do you think JJK is perfect just the way it is? Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave time loss. Like, literally just time loss in the comment section down below. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, along with ad-free variations of all my videos, and sorry, I messed that up. If you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Connor Plays, Greyhound, Akiz Void, Astro, Red Wolf 4765, Eternal Flame, and Teen Mitgao. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Panda Goat, Midnight Lord 21, Metal Solid Crisis, Kevin, Ignil, and EHAC1. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 member, Autumn Mornings Lazo. And I'd like to give a big thank you to our $10 member, Jay Warrior. And I'd like to give another thank you to our $10 patrons, Joaquin and Idemokami. Along with another juicy thank you to our $25 patron, ChinaDoll09. And I'd like to give a final Giga Gargantuan thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.